At the beginning of most relationships, men believe attraction is a clean, logical exchange. If she chooses you, then her attention should naturally narrow toward you. If she's committed, she shouldn't need validation from other men. This belief feels reasonable, but it ignores a deeper psychological reality that many men only discover through pain. The first secret is this: a woman can want attention even from men she has no desire to be with. And that attention often has nothing to do with betrayal or disloyalty. Attention is not always romantic. It is validation, and validation feeds identity, confidence, and emotional reassurance. Many women enjoy compliments from coworkers, replies from strangers in their messages, or harmless flirtation that never crosses into action. To her, this attention functions like background noise, affirming her value. To the man she's with, it often feels like competition, disrespect, or a quiet threat. This is where confusion begins. Men assume that if another man gets her attention, he must also have a chance with her. In reality, most of that attention is meaningless to her romantically, but highly meaningful to her ego. The danger isn't the attention itself. The danger is how men react to it. When a man starts monitoring who messages her, reacting emotionally to every compliment she receives, or trying to outshine every other man in the room, he unknowingly lowers his own value. He communicates scarcity. He signals that her attention is the prize, rather than his presence. At that moment, her attraction begins to shift, not because of the other men, but because of how he positions himself in relation to them. The solution is not control, jealousy, or emotional withdrawal. It is becoming anchored in your own direction. A man on his mission does not compete with background noise. His life has weight. His time has structure. His attention is selective. When he enters a room, he doesn't demand focus. Yet it naturally redirects toward him because it feels different. Stable, grounded, self-contained. In that frame, all other attention she receives fades in importance without him needing to fight for it. This is where most men misunderstand attraction. They think winning attention keeps desire alive, when in truth, becoming the man who doesn't chase it is what makes attention reorganize itself around you. And this is only the first layer. Because once attention is no longer the battlefield, another, far more dangerous dynamic quietly appears. One that most men mistake for care, support, and love, until it costs them everything. The second secret is more subtle, and because of that, far more destructive when misunderstood. A woman may genuinely want you, desire you, and feel drawn to you, while at the same time wanting to change you. At first, this doesn't look dangerous. It shows up as suggestions, comments about your style, your haircut, how you speak, how you spend your time, or how you should think bigger or do better. Most men interpret this as care. They believe she is helping them improve, supporting their growth, or guiding them toward a better version of themselves. But psychologically, something deeper is happening. These suggestions are rarely just about improvement. They are tests of influence. She is unconsciously checking whether she can shape you, mold you, and slowly move your frame closer to hers. The attraction is not only in who you are, but in whether you remain who you are when pressure is applied. This is where men make a critical mistake. They believe agreement equals harmony, and harmony equals love. When a man complies with every suggestion, changes himself to avoid friction, and adopts her vision fully, the dynamic quietly flips. The very challenge that created attraction begins to disappear. The edge that once made him feel solid grounded, and distinct erodes. She may get the man she designed, but she loses the man she was drawn to. Attraction doesn't come from the finished product. It comes from the tension between who you are and who you could become, guided by your own standards, not hers. Men often confuse being agreeable with being mature. They think peace means saying yes. In reality, peace without self-respect is not stability. It is submission, and submission slowly drains desire. When a man stops holding his own direction, she stops feeling polarity. She may not consciously understand why her interest fades, but emotionally, something vital has gone missing. The man she's with no longer feels anchored. He feels adaptable, negotiable, and increasingly predictable. This doesn't mean rejecting all feedback or refusing growth. It means growth must come from within your own frame. A man who improves because he chooses to, who evolves according to his own vision, remains attractive. A man who reshapes himself to be approved loses his center. And when a man loses his center, no amount of agreement can save attraction. Most breakups that come out of nowhere are not sudden. They are the delayed result of this slow erosion. And what makes it more painful is that many men believe they did everything right. They listened. They adapted. They tried to be what she wanted. What they don't realize is that in doing so, they removed the very tension that kept desire alive. And this leads directly to the next secret, one that explains why all those efforts, sacrifices, and good moments can suddenly feel like they meant nothing at all. The third secret is the one that leaves men the most shocked when a relationship ends. Men tend to experience relationships as a timeline. They remember effort, sacrifices, shared struggles, and moments where they showed up despite difficulty. In their mind, these moments accumulate like credit. Each act of loyalty, patience, and forgiveness becomes part of an invisible ledger that should protect the relationship during hard times. Women, however, do not experience emotional history in the same way. For many women, emotional reality is anchored in the present. How she feels today heavily outweighs how she felt yesterday. Good times do not permanently buffer bad emotions. They fade quickly when current dissatisfaction takes over. One argument, one moment of feeling ignored, or one period where she feels emotionally disconnected can outweigh months of stability in her emotional memory. This is not cruelty or manipulation. It is emotional immediacy. When a woman feels unhappy now, her mind doesn't reference the full relationship history for balance. Instead, it rewrites the story to match the current feeling. High points get minimized, low points get amplified. Past effort becomes invisible. This is why men often hear phrases like, "You were never really there for me," or "I've been unhappy for a long time," even when the relationship previously felt loving and stable. To the man, this feels unfair and illogical. To her, it feels emotionally true. This difference in perception is what creates so much devastation during breakups. Men believe loyalty and sacrifice guarantee security. They assume that being consistent, patient, and forgiving builds a foundation that cannot be erased. When the relationship collapses anyway, they feel blindsided. They start listing everything they did, everything they endured, and everything they gave. But that list exists only in their mind. Emotionally, it no longer carries weight for her. The danger is not that women forget good times. The danger is that men rely on remembered good times as protection against future conflict. They stop leading. They stop creating emotional presence. They start coasting on past effort. Meanwhile, Her emotional experience resets again and again, based on how she feels in the moment. When that moment stays negative long enough, the relationship silently decays from the inside. This doesn't mean men should keep performing or proving endlessly. It means emotional leadership cannot be outsourced to history. Attraction and connection are maintained in the present, not secured by the past. When a man understands this, he stops negotiating with memory and starts focusing on how he shows up now. And this understanding sets the stage for the fourth secret, one that explains why trying to please her, win arguments, or give her everything she wants often destroys the very respect men are trying so hard to protect. The fourth secret is one that directly challenges modern advice about equality, compromise, and emotional symmetry. While many women may say they want full control, shared leadership, or to decide together, their attraction tells a different story. Deep down, most women do not want to dominate the relationship. They want to feel guided by a man who is internally stable and externally directed. When a woman feels she is leading the man, respect quietly erodes. This erosion doesn't happen all at once. It happens through small moments. Arguments where he gives in just to keep the peace. Decisions where he defers even when he disagrees. Boundaries that soften because confrontation feels uncomfortable. Each time this happens, the relationship feels calmer on the surface, but something underneath begins to weaken. Winning an argument or always getting her way may feel satisfying in the moment, but it creates a subtle imbalance. She starts feeling like the adult in the dynamic, and desire does not survive that shift. A woman cannot fully respect a man she can emotionally push around, even when she is the one pushing, even when she benefits from it. Respect is not something she consciously decides to lose. It fades when she senses that his center moves based on her emotional state. When he adjusts his values, direction, or boundaries to avoid tension, she learns that his frame is flexible, and flexibility in core identity kills polarity. This is why many men are confused when relationships fail despite them being calm, accommodating, and understanding. They believe leadership means control, dominance, or harshness, so they avoid it entirely. In reality, leadership is not force, it is steadiness. A man who leads does not need to overpower emotions. He remains grounded during emotional storms. He listens without collapsing. He makes decisions aligned with long-term vision, not short-term peace. Women test this unconsciously. They push, they challenge, they question, not because they want chaos, but because they are checking whether the man standing in front of them can hold his ground without aggression or withdrawal. When he does, she relaxes. When he doesn't, anxiety replaces attraction. The irony is that trying to please her by giving her full control creates the very dissatisfaction men are trying to avoid. She may feel temporarily heard, but long-term, something feels missing. The relationship loses direction, and when direction disappears, respect soon follows. Understanding this is crucial because it leads directly into the fifth secret, one that explains why telling the raw, unfiltered truth at the wrong moment can do far more damage than silence ever could. The fifth secret is one that many men misunderstand because it sounds dishonest on the surface. When a woman asks a question, she does not always want the raw, blunt truth delivered without consideration. This does not mean she wants lies. It means she wants emotional intelligence paired with strength. Many men believe that saying exactly what they think, without filter or timing, is a sign of confidence. In reality, it often signals a lack of wisdom. There are moments when brutal honesty diminishes rather than strengthens the connection. For example, when she asks how she looks, what you feel about a sensitive issue, or whether something bothers you, she's often seeking reassurance more than information. She wants to feel safe, valued, and understood while still respecting you as a grounded man. When a man drops unfiltered truth without emotional awareness, it can make her feel exposed, reduced, or emotionally unsafe. This is where men confuse bluntness with power. They believe that being direct at all costs proves strength. But strength is not the absence of tact. Strength is the ability to communicate truth without destabilizing the emotional foundation. A man with presence knows how to hold honesty and reassurance at the same time. He doesn't sugarcoat reality, but he also doesn't weaponize truth to assert dominance or appear fearless. When a man lacks this balance, the consequences are subtle but real. She may not argue. She may not react immediately. Instead, her emotional openness narrows. She becomes less expressive, less vulnerable, and less warm. Respect doesn't increase, it cools. And once warmth disappears, attraction soon follows. The key is not to speak less truth, but to speak it from a grounded place. Timing matters. Tone matters. Intent matters. A man who understands this does not feel the need to prove honesty. He embodies it. His words land with weight because they are calibrated, not impulsive. This is also why emotional intelligence often outperforms logic in relationships. Logic without empathy feels cold. Empathy without structure feels weak. The man who can hold both becomes someone she can trust emotionally without feeling that he lacks backbone. And yet, even with perfect communication, there is another unavoidable reality. Women will still test you. Not openly, not logically, but emotionally. And whether you pass or fail those tests determines the future of the relationship far more than any conversation ever could. The sixth secret is one that men rarely recognize until after they fail it multiple times. Women test men without announcing that a test is happening. These tests do not arrive as clear challenges or logical conversations. They appear as sudden mood shifts, seemingly unnecessary arguments, emotional withdrawals, or reactions that feel disproportionate to the situation, to a man. These moments feel confusing and unfair to her subconscious. They are evaluations. She's not testing your knowledge, your logic, or your ability to explain yourself. She is testing your emotional stability. She wants to see whether you remain solid when pressure appears, whether your identity collapses when the emotional temperature rises, whether you panic, chase, plead, explode, or withdraw. Each reaction sends a signal about how safe it is to emotionally lean on you. Most men fail these tests by overreacting. They try to fix emotions immediately. They beg for reassurance. They demand explanations, or they lose control and turn defensive or aggressive. In doing so, they reveal that their emotional center depends on her state. And when she feels that dependency, respect collapses, not because she wants power, but because she senses instability. Passing the test does not require silence or indifference. It requires calm presence. A man who remains grounded listens without absorbing chaos. He responds without urgency. He sets boundaries without hostility. His nervous system stays regulated even when hers is not. This creates safety, and safety is the foundation of respect. These tests are not malicious. They are instinctive. They come from a deep biological need to know whether the man beside her can remain steady in uncertainty, pressure, and emotional fluctuation. No woman announces these tests because they are not conscious strategies. They are emotional reflexes. What makes this secret difficult is that tests never stop completely. They evolve. Early tests look dramatic. Later tests look subtle. But they are always present. The man does not control whether tests occur. He only controls how he responds. When a man understands this, he stops personalizing emotional storms. He stops chasing calm. He stops trying to win arguments. Instead, he becomes the calm. And when he does, respect quietly increases, even if she never explains why. And this brings us to the final secret. The one that frees men from exhaustion, resentment, and the endless attempt to be enough for someone who will always want more. The seventh secret is the one that, once understood, changes how a man approaches relationships forever. Women are wired to seek growth, security, and progress. Because of this, they are rarely fully satisfied for long. There is no permanent finish line where she says, "This is enough. I no longer want anything more." This is not a flaw. It is an evolutionary drive toward improvement and expansion. The problem begins when men misinterpret this drive and take personal responsibility for filling it completely. Many men enter relationships believing that if they love hard enough, give enough, and sacrifice enough, they will eventually reach a state of lasting peace. They believe that one day she will finally feel content and stop wanting more. That day never comes. As soon as one need is met, another appears. As soon as one problem is solved, a new desire forms. When a man doesn't understand this, he exhausts himself trying to fill a bottomless bucket. Over time, this creates resentment. He feels unappreciated. He feels drained. He feels like no matter what he does, it's never enough. Meanwhile, she feels restless without fully understanding why. The relationship becomes a cycle of effort and dissatisfaction, with no stable ground in sight. The truth is that a woman's constant desire for more is not meant to be solved by a man's endless giving. It is meant to be balanced by a man who is already fulfilled by his own life. When a man builds a life that satisfies him, one with purpose, structure, and forward motion, he stops chasing her satisfaction as his responsibility. Ironically, this is when attraction stabilizes, not because she suddenly becomes fully content, but because she is no longer the center of his emotional universe. A man who focuses on his mission does not abandon the relationship. He brings strength into it. He gives from abundance rather than need. He remains present without being consumed. And in doing so, he avoids the trap that destroys so many men, losing themselves while trying to be everything for someone else. This entire message is not about hating women or blaming them. It is about understanding real, observable patterns so men stop repeating the same painful mistakes. Not every woman displays all of these behaviors, but the patterns exist often enough to matter. Ignoring them leads to self-loss, emotional chaos, and endless people-pleasing. Understanding them leads to clarity, self-respect, and stable attraction. Men do not need fairy tales. They need reality, and reality, when understood correctly, is far more empowering than any comforting lie.